Have you ever found yourself clinging to a fading echo, a phantom limb of a past relationship, long after the vibrant symphony of connection has dissolved into silence? It's a profound human dilemma, this struggle with letting go, a stubborn refusal to release what once was, even when its presence weighs us down like an anchor in a restless sea. We often believe we are holding on to love or a version of ourselves, but what if, beneath the conscious yearning, we are merely clutching at the familiar, however painful, rather than venturing into the terrifying, liberating expanse of the unknown? This clinging isn't just about lost lovers. It's about forfeited dreams, unfulfilled expectations, and the shadows of what we thought our lives should be. It's the silent suffering of a soul tethered to a narrative that has already ended, unable to embrace the blank pages of a new chapter. Consider the story of Alara, a woman whose life, to an outside observer, seemed to hum with effortless grace. She was a successful architect, her designs celebrated for their innovative spirit and harmonious flow. Yet, beneath this polished exterior, Alara harbored a profound ache, a wound inflicted years ago by a relationship that had imploded with the force of a supernova. Liam, her former fiancé, had been the very sun around which her universe revolved. Their love was a whirlwind of shared passions, intellectual sparring, and an unspoken understanding that transcended words. They'd meticulously planned a future, a sprawling country home with a studio for her and a workshop for him, children's laughter echoing through sun-drenched rooms. Then, without warning, the connection fractured, dissolving into a bitter silence that left Alara reeling. He had simply walked away, offering no explanation beyond a vague sense of incompatibility that felt like a cruel joke given the depth of their shared history. For years, Alara found herself trapped in a labyrinth of what-ifs and if-onlys. Every new potential connection felt like a pale imitation of what she had lost. She'd compare every gesture, every word, every laugh to the ghost of Liam, finding them all wanting. Her meticulously organized apartment became a shrine to their past, filled with subtle reminders. A half-finished sculpture they'd started together, a book he'd recommended still perched on her bedside table, even the scent of a particular coffee that reminded her of their morning rituals. This wasn't merely nostalgia. It was an active, conscious engagement with a past that refused to relinquish its hold. Her friends, seeing her trapped in this melancholic loop, offered well-meaning advice, urging her to move on, to embrace new experiences. But how does one simply move on when the very foundation of one's emotional world feels shattered? The insidious nature of her clinging began to manifest in subtle, yet destructive ways. She would find herself reliving arguments, replaying moments of intimacy, dissecting every word exchanged, searching for clues, for a reason, for a way to rewrite the ending. This constant re-engagement with the past consumed her energy, leaving her depleted and emotionally barren. She'd scroll through old photos, not with fondness, but with a desperate yearning for a return to a perceived golden age. Her creative spark, once so vibrant, dimmed considerably. The innovative architect became rigid, her designs lacking the very flow and harmony she once championed. She began to isolate herself, declining invitations, retreating into the false comfort of her memories. The world outside, with its vibrant chaos and unpredictable beauty, felt overwhelming, a threat to the carefully constructed narrative of her grief. One evening, after another solitary meal consumed amidst the echoes of her past, Alara stumbled upon an old journal, forgotten in a dusty box. It was a journal she had kept during the early days of her relationship with Liam, filled with fervent hopes and dreams. As she read through the entries, a disquieting truth began to emerge. Amidst the declarations of love and shared aspirations, there were subtle hints of unease, overlooked red flags. Liam's occasional emotional distance, his tendency to retreat when confronted with conflict, her own desperate need for his validation. She had, in her idealized recollection, airbrushed these imperfections, creating a perfect, unattainable phantom. This wasn't a betrayal of memory. It was a profound psychological defense mechanism, a way of preserving the narrative of a perfect love to avoid confronting the painful reality of its flaws and her own complicity in its unraveling. The pain wasn't just Liam's departure. It was the shattering of an illusion she had meticulously constructed, and in doing so, she had inadvertently projected her own idealized self onto him, making his perceived abandonment a direct assault on her very being. This internal revelation was not a sudden epiphany, but a slow, agonizing dawn. It chipped away at the solid edifice of her grief, revealing the raw, unadorned truth beneath. She saw how her ego projection had clouded her judgment, how she had cast Liam in the role of her animus, the idealized masculine force that would complete her, neglecting her own internal wellspring of strength and completeness. The clinging was not about Liam. It was about her inability to integrate her own shadows, her fear of standing alone, unmoored from the external validation he had once provided. This realization, though initially terrifying, was also strangely liberating. It was the first step towards shadow work, towards confronting the parts of herself she had unconsciously repressed or attributed to others. The journey was arduous. It involved confronting the anger she had suppressed, the self-blame she had internalized, and the deep-seated fear of abandonment that had been exacerbated by Liam's departure. She started with small acts of defiance against her self-imposed imprisonment, clearing out old mementos, not with bitterness, but with a quiet sense of release. She began to reconnect with friends, tentatively at first, then with increasing confidence. She rediscovered her passion for painting, an art form she had abandoned during her relationship with Liam because he'd subtly dismissed it as a hobby rather than a true creative pursuit. Each brushstroke was an act of reclamation, a reassertion of her own intrinsic worth, independent of another's gaze. This process of individuation, of becoming more fully herself, was not linear. There were days when the grief would resurface with a vengeance, threatening to pull her back into the familiar abyss. But now, armed with a deeper understanding of her own psychological landscape, she had tools to navigate these internal storms. She learned to sit with the discomfort, to acknowledge the pain without allowing it to consume her. She began to understand that true strength wasn't about eradicating pain, but about integrating it, allowing it to inform her growth without defining her existence. The question that echoed within her now was not, why did he leave? But, what can I learn from this experience about myself? Alara's journey illustrates the archetypal struggle of the soul grappling with loss and the imperative to let go. Her initial state was that of the victim archetype, trapped in a narrative of external blame and self-pity, clinging to the familiar, albeit painful, past. Yet, through the arduous process of introspection and the courage to confront her own internal landscape, she began to embody the seeker and eventually the alchemist, transforming her pain into wisdom. Her story underscores the profound truth that true healing doesn't come from finding new attachments to fill the void, but from a radical reevaluation of one's own internal resources. The theme here is the intricate dance between attachment and liberation, the psychological necessity of releasing the old to make space for the new, not just in relationships, but in the evolution of the self. For you, too, if you find yourself similarly ensnared, consider this: what are you clinging to that no longer serves your highest good? What phantom limb are you still trying to animate? The path to liberation often begins with a terrifying whisper, the acknowledgement that what you believe you need, what you desperately hold on to, might be precisely what is holding you back. It requires the courage to delve into your own shadow, to understand the projections and unconscious biases that shape your reality. Ask yourself, what narratives about yourself and your past are you still clinging to? What fear prevents you from stepping into the exhilarating uncertainty of the unknown? The answers lie not in external solutions, but within the rich, often unsettling, landscape of your own psyche. Embrace the discomfort, for it is often the precursor to profound growth. Recognize that letting go is not an act of forgetting, but an act of profound self-love, a brave declaration that your future is more valuable than your past. It is the art of creating space for something new, something truly aligned with your evolving self. The path of letting go often confronts us with a profound psychological truth. The greater our attachment to a specific outcome, a particular person, or a rigid self-perception, the deeper the pain when reality inevitably deviates from our cherished illusions. This brings us to the very heart of the unknown, the terrifying yet fertile ground that lies beyond our control. It's here, at the precipice of what we cannot orchestrate, that the true work of self-liberation begins. The initial foray into this uncharted territory, as Alara discovered, is often met with resistance, a desperate attempt to reassert control over what has already slipped through our grasp. But what if embracing the unknown isn't about surrendering to chaos, but rather about surrendering to a deeper, more authentic current of existence? Carl Jung, the profound Swiss psychiatrist, offered invaluable insights into this very human struggle. He posited, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This powerful declaration strikes at the core of our reluctance to embrace the unknown, particularly the unknown within ourselves. The darkness Jung refers to isn't necessarily evil. It's the unconscious, the repressed, the unacknowledged aspects of our psyche, our fears, our vulnerabilities, our unlived potentials, and the shadows of past experiences that continue to exert an unseen influence. When we cling to what is known, even if it's painful, we are, in essence, refusing to make this darkness conscious. We are choosing the familiar prison of our perceived reality over the terrifying freedom of self-discovery. Consider the intricate dance of the ego with the unknown. The ego, in Jungian terms, is the center of consciousness, our sense of I. Its primary function is to maintain stability, coherence, and a sense of identity. When faced with the unpredictable, with loss, or with the dissolution of a familiar structure, the ego experiences a profound threat. It attempts to reestablish control, often through repetitive thoughts, obsessive analysis, or desperate attempts to manipulate external circumstances. This is precisely what Alara experienced after Liam's departure. A frantic mental replaying of events, an attempt to rationalize, to find fault, to regain a sense of mastery over a situation that was inherently beyond her control. Her ego, threatened by the unknown future without Liam, clung fiercely to the known past, however agonizing. Furthermore, Jung's concept of the shadow is intricately woven into our fear of the unknown. The shadow comprises the parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable, unworthy, or undesirable, and thus repress into the unconscious. When we encounter the unknown, especially in the context of relationship endings, these repressed aspects can surge to the surface. We might suddenly feel an intense fear of loneliness, a pervasive sense of inadequacy, or a profound lack of self-worth, feelings we may have successfully avoided confronting while in a secure relationship. The unknown, then, becomes a mirror reflecting our own unaddressed shadows. To embrace the unknown is to willingly step into this mirror, not to be consumed by the darkness, but to integrate it, to acknowledge these disowned parts of ourselves and bring them into the light of consciousness. It is in this courageous act of self-acceptance that true psychological growth, or individuation, occurs. Without confronting these internal unknowns, we are forever bound by their unseen influence, projecting them onto others or allowing them to dictate our choices, often leading to repetitive patterns of unfulfilling relationships or stagnation. B.F. Skinner, from a behavioral perspective, might illuminate this clinging to the known through the lens of reinforcement. Our past behaviors, particularly those that brought comfort or a sense of security, even if temporary, become reinforced. The familiar pain of holding onto a past love, for instance, might be less terrifying than the unknown discomfort of starting anew, facing rejection, or enduring the vulnerability of building something from scratch. The comfort, however illusory, becomes a negative reinforcement, preventing us from engaging in new behaviors that could lead to greater long-term fulfillment. The challenge, then, lies in consciously unlearning these reinforced patterns of attachment and actively seeking out new, positive reinforcements in the unknown. This requires a conscious effort to challenge our conditioned responses and to experiment with new ways of being and interacting with the world. Think about the archetypal journey of the heroine, who must venture into the wilderness, facing dragons and overcoming obstacles, not just to return with a boon, but to fundamentally transform herself in the process. The unknown is that wilderness. It is the crucible in which the soul is forged anew. When Alara began to let go of her idealized past, she was, in essence, stepping into her own wilderness. The The dragons she faced were not external foes, but her internalized fears of loneliness, failure, and unworthiness. Her willingness to confront these internal landscapes, to make her own darkness conscious, was the true act of heroism. She wasn't merely letting go of Liam. She was letting go of a confined, externally validated version of herself. This profound concept is echoed in the philosophy of Stoicism. Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher, famously wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This speaks directly to our fear of the unknown. We conjure elaborate narratives of potential pain, loss, and failure, creating mental prisons far more formidable than any external circumstance. The Stoic wisdom, therefore, encourages us to focus on what is within our control, our perceptions, our judgments, and our responses, rather than becoming entangled in the uncontrollable external world or the imagined horrors of an uncertain future. Embracing the unknown, from a Stoic perspective, is an act of profound mental discipline, a deliberate choice to remain unperturbed by what lies beyond our immediate grasp, and instead to cultivate inner resilience. The embrace of the unknown is not a passive act. It is a courageous assertion of agency in the face of uncertainty. It requires a fundamental shift in perspective, from viewing the unknown as a threat to perceiving it as a landscape of possibility. It is about trusting in one's inherent capacity to adapt, to learn, and to thrive, even when the map of one's life seems to have vanished. It is the brave decision to venture beyond the familiar shores of our comfort zone, knowing that while the currents may be unpredictable, new horizons await. The individual who grapples with the unknown often embodies the orphan archetype initially, feeling abandoned and lost without the familiar structures. However, through courage and introspection, this archetype can evolve into the explorer, driven by curiosity and a thirst for new experiences, eventually becoming the magician, capable of transforming uncertainty into opportunity. The theme here is the inherent human capacity for resilience and transformation when faced with the void. It's a testament to the fact that our greatest growth often emerges from our deepest discomforts. For you, contemplating your own relationship with the unknown, what comfort zones are you afraid to leave? What preconceived notions about yourself or your future are you clinging to? Do you find yourself imagining the worst, creating elaborate scenarios of failure or loneliness? Remember Jung's words, "The path to enlightenment is not by clinging to the light you know, but by courageously venturing into your own darkness, making it conscious and integrating its lessons." True freedom lies not in controlling the unpredictable currents of life, but in learning to navigate them with wisdom and an open heart. What new possibilities might unfold if you dared to release your grip on what you think should be and bravely stepped into the exhilarating uncertainty of what could be? The profound journey of letting go culminates in an astonishing paradox. By releasing our desperate grip on what we thought we needed, we discover an unshakable inner power, a profound sense of self-worth that transcends external validation. This final stage isn't about resignation. It's about liberation, a rebirth of the self that emerges from the crucible of embracing the unknown. It is in this fertile void, where old attachments wither, that new seeds of authenticity can truly blossom. The real art of letting go, then, is not merely detaching from a person or a situation, but shedding the very illusion that our happiness or completeness resides outside ourselves. Consider the enduring wisdom of Carl Rogers, the father of humanistic psychology, who emphasized the concept of the actualizing tendency, the inherent drive within every individual to develop their capacities and potentials, to move towards wholeness and self-fulfillment. When we cling to past hurts, to unresolved conflicts, or to relationships that no longer serve us, we actively impede this natural actualizing tendency. We stunt our own growth, much like a plant desperately clinging to withered leaves, unable to direct its energy towards new blossoms. The act of letting go, therefore, aligns us with this innate drive, allowing us to shed the old husks and re-engage with our intrinsic potential for growth and well-being. It is a radical act of faith in our own internal compass. Let's return to Alara, whose journey through the labyrinth of grief and attachment slowly transformed into a dance with liberation. After the initial discomfort of confronting her shadow and embracing the unknown of her solitary existence, she found herself in a quieter, yet profoundly more potent space. The frantic internal dialogue had subsided, replaced by moments of stillness and introspection. She stopped searching for external signs or validation, turning her gaze inward. This shift wasn't instantaneous. It was a gradual unfolding, like the slow opening of a rare bloom. One crisp autumn morning, Alara found herself walking through a familiar park, a place she used to frequent with Liam. For years, this park had been a minefield of painful memories. Each bench, each tree, a poignant reminder of what was lost. But on this particular day, something was different. As she observed the vibrant hues of the changing leaves, a profound sense of peace washed over her. She realized, with startling clarity, that the beauty of the park was inherent, independent of her shared history within it. Her joy in its presence was her own. She wasn't seeking a ghost. She was simply being fully present in the moment. This was a profound moment of mindfulness, a quiet triumph over the pervasive hold of the past. This subtle yet powerful shift marked the beginning of her true internal rebirth. She began to invest in herself, not out of a desperate need to fill a void, but from a genuine desire for self-cultivation. She enrolled in a pottery class, something she had always wanted to try but never made time for. The tactile experience of shaping clay, the meditative rhythm of the potter's wheel, became a new source of joy and grounding. She started meditating regularly, finding solace in the quiet contemplation of her breath, allowing thoughts to come and go without judgment, practicing the art of non-attachment in its purest form. She reconnected with old friends, fostering genuine connections that were no longer overshadowed by the specter of a past relationship. Her architecture projects, once constrained by a cautious conservatism, began to reclaim their innovative spirit, reflecting a newfound fearlessness and a deeper connection to her authentic creative voice. This was not a process of getting over Liam, but of integrating the experience, extracting its painful lessons, and transforming them into a source of strength. She understood that her self-worth was not contingent on being loved by someone else, but resided within her, an unshakable core. The pain had not disappeared entirely, but its intensity had softened, transmuted into a quiet understanding, a deep well of empathy for herself and others. This embodies the essence of trauma psychology and the journey towards modern self-worth, recognizing that healing isn't about erasing the past, but about integrating its lessons, reframing the narrative and reclaiming agency over one's present and future. It's about recognizing that you are enough, exactly as you are, regardless of external circumstances. Alara's journey illustrates the ultimate triumph of the innocent archetype transforming into the sage. Initially, she might have possessed an idealistic innocence, easily wounded by the harsh realities of life and relationships. But through the fires of letting go and embracing the unknown, she acquired wisdom, not just intellectual understanding, but a deep, embodied knowing of her own resilience and intrinsic worth. The theme here is the profound spiritual and psychological growth that occurs when we cease to define ourselves by external circumstances and instead cultivate an unshakable inner foundation. It's the powerful realization that true abundance comes from within, not from what we desperately try to hold on to. For you, in the quiet moments of your own reflection, consider this: what does true letting go feel like to you? Is it a sense of quiet liberation, a gentle untethering from what no longer serves? How are you actively cultivating your own inner sanctuary, your own source of self-worth, independent of external validation? Perhaps it's through simple acts of self-care, a long walk in nature, a mindful moment of breathing, engaging in a creative pursuit that brings you joy. Perhaps it's through challenging negative thought patterns, consciously choosing to reframe past experiences not as failures, but as profound lessons. The journey of letting go is not a destination but a continuous process, a graceful dance with the ever-changing currents of life. It's about cultivating the inner strength to stand tall in the face of uncertainty, knowing that you possess the inherent capacity to navigate any storm. When you release your grip, you aren't losing, you are creating space. Space for new joys, new connections, and a profound, liberating understanding of who you truly are, unburdened by the echoes of the past. Your internal power is transformative, capable of dissolving negative thoughts and fostering positive changes. Whether it's through walking, meditating, yoga, or simply embracing moments of quiet stillness, this rebirth is within your reach, a powerful testament to your own resilience. What small act of letting go will you undertake today to reclaim your inherent power and embrace the exciting unknown that awaits? Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and share this video with other friends to spread these valuable insights in life. Thank you for listening. The END.